Okay, a slightly lower attendance this morning. Let's try to make the best of it, and we'll see if we're joining. Okay, so our meeting is going to be recorded, so it's just as a general reminder. So yeah, if anything occur you want us to edit out, please share with us before we share on YouTube. So our meeting agenda for today is to discuss items we brought up last week. So the first one is, and it's generally about how to coordinate analysis of the data we are generating. So last week we agreed to discuss a poll that will be sent to the entire group asynchronously to generate feedback on how to organize. And the second one is an analysis plan that Sarah Rudiger put together. I'm hoping she's going to join us. About how to sort of prioritize the different threads. So is there anything else that someone wants to bring up to the meeting? So let's get started on the poll. So what I did is take the paper that we have on archive, and essentially I took all of the, so we in the publication we wrote a list of aims for the analysis with questions such as what kind of information is encoded by mismatch response. And then we had subsequent analysis were designed to answer the questions, and it was written in the archive paper. And so I took these and structure them into a poll with three main headlines. So first the question, and then the analysis underneath. And so the intent of the poll will be to first ask about everyone involved, what is their expertise and how they want to leverage it. And then ask everyone to rank the section that we have in the archive piece, first by scientific impact from their perspective. So that will be the first question here. So rank by science. And then what should be the first is done. And the second is rank by personal interest. So just essentially state in which order they would prefer to contribute to each items. And my rationale to proposing this is that it helps us align both the impact of the particular analysis and the people we have available to do this. So that's the first part of the poll. The second part of the poll is something that Karim suggested last week, is about publication bundles. And so I am proposing here different grouping of questions. And so this sort of, the intent of this is to provide visibility on how we could group this analysis into publications. And similarly, the poll asks, which package do you think is most impactful, and which one you would like to contribute the most? And then the last section of the comment is mostly a free-form text to provide any additional comments to the analysis effort. So that's how I'm proposing it to structure. I'm open to discussion and whatever your thoughts are, or how we should approach this. Any feedback? Do you think it's good? Any concern?
Just one question, Jerome.
Yeah.
The visual version, or the kind of the analysis map, this is meant as kind of a visual guidance to this document, or how would you see it?
So this, yeah. This is something that Sarah, I don't know if she joined us. Sarah suggested we sort of build. Uh, yeah, she has not joined yet. So let's look at it quickly. Uh, that's right. So she put this together, and I mean, obviously these are complementary to one another. I think the visual is intended to sort of see how this could be organized. You know, like if you do this, how does it propagate to the next items? And we can iterate it and maintain it as a source of organization. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I find this very helpful. And maybe we can like iterate on these points or groups, let's say, and then have those in the form maybe, and it's helpful to have it
Should
consistently.
should we iterate this figure before we send the poll, in your opinion? What's the general opinion in the group? We I must say we have the time because we're still collecting the data, so I think this is forward looking.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. Should we first gather all the info and kind of ideas that people have, and then try to build this in, or first decide which are the main areas, and then people can kind of group or yeah, kind of join these projects.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Yeah, Jerome, I like this graphic a lot that Sarah made. I think it should answer a lot of people's questions. What I sense is there are different philosophies that people have for scientific projects, and so I'm sensing a little bit of a clash. So some people they want to have the big picture first, and then work towards that. So for example, we have these different models. Which one is predictive coding? And so we want to test which one it is. So that's a really big picture idea, and then we have to work towards that, right? And so some people prefer that. So there's a clear guiding star. We know what the goal is. We know what to do. And then as you do it, you'll discover, oh, wait, we first have to find out which neurons are even responding. And so
Yeah.
the opposite view is to be like, no, let's call it top down. And the opposite view is bottom up, where it's like, well, okay, what do we first have to do? Well, first we have to find the neurons that are visually responding. So I think this graphic responds to both. But I could see how in the future this difference in preference for thinking about these projects could cause maybe further friction. So I'm wondering if so for example, for the first step of the work, you had a Kanban board, and so I'm not a big fan of corporatization or using corporate tools, but what it does is make clear to everyone that look, we first have to find which neurons are responding, then we do this, and so on. And so it's a kind of Gantt chart or something that further makes clear how we view that. So maybe there's no preference for organizing things that strictly. It often doesn't work, but I already sense that if we have some further tools, just like this visualization of organizing our thoughts, and then also how much time we think belongs to what, and then the big question that is also a little bit answered here, I think for trainees, they often have the question that for senior people is a little bit more intuitive in terms of, well, how much work is needed for authorship or for a paper, right? So for most senior people, we have a feeling for that. We've lived with that a lot. But for a junior person, there's a risk that they see the marathon as a sprint. So they launch into the project, they do a lot, and then the feedback is, yeah, keep going. And they're like, wait, I thought at this point I should have a paper. So to make very clear from the outset that no, that's not enough for a paper. This is how much it takes, both of time and effort and so on. So that would be my main feedback, given the discussions we had so far, and personal experiences working on bigger projects like that.
Yeah. I think one intent here is to break down the big things in smaller pieces that are complementary to one another. So like for a trainee, seeing how their analysis in one corner of his graph contribute to a bigger piece, I think it converts that marathon into a sprint, right? Like, so you're making that sprint, but once you're done that block, someone is doing something else. So I feel like that's important, especially how we are distributed across the world. And so I think also providing some visibility about who wants to do what to the entire group is helpful. So that's the intent of the poll. Yeah, we might, because of the nature of the project, we might have to be a little more top-down than projects that have a single person that is just learning as it goes. That's my intuition.
I have a question.
My main
sorry. Since I've never actually talked in these meetings and I've just been an observer, I'm actually, curious as to like how many people are going to be, contributing to analyses and like, because I don't think anyone responded to the poll, Jerome.
No, there's not been any poll yet.
Okay.
It's just we're agreeing on the content of the poll, not on the poll.
Okay, I see.
That's right.
Just in terms of like how many people are going to be contributing and like, even if it's like, I don't know, somewhat top down, I can foresee a situation where people duplicate a lot of efforts if they're not, talking a lot.
That's right. That's right. So providing some visibility is helpful, like facilitate this transparency. I think that's the intent.
So I think we have some experience based on the SLAP 2 data. And so the approach seemed to me, Jerome, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed to be quite hands-off. It was anarchy. Anybody could do what they wanted whenever they wanted. And it worked surprisingly. It's surprisingly well, maybe for someone like me who's never experienced that. But what I learned is the best is if somebody does some work and then shares the code. So then while you go to sleep at the end of your day, somebody else somewhere else in the world might use your code and keep working on it. And so then you just have to trust the system. And it worked very well that at the beginning of the code, you list everybody who at some point contributed to the code, but the code kind of keeps growing. And so that is my main concern as well, that while this here, what we have to the left, gives high-level ideas of what we want to work for, my personal experience has been with data analysis that 80% of the work that you do is none about this, none. It's fine, it's quality control, it's finding out which signals are useful, which neurons are responding. And so that's my main concern in terms of like how we're going to deal with this work, how does it fit in there? And that's how we're going to communicate with that, because there can be clashes where somebody, for example, says, hey, look, I wrote this one line of code. I'm doing this very simple C-scoring and taking 2 standard deviations to determine what's visually responsive. And then at a later point, the paper is thin on data and somebody says, hey, wait, initially we threw out 80% of neurons because we thought they're unresponsive. And so what you can get is a clash between people that want to go more carefully and slowly and make sure that we have to never go back and undo something, and people that just want to move quickly towards this goal. That's why I'm wondering if we might want to have some more structure in terms of like a roadmap, in terms of, look, this, what you want to do right here, actually requires all of this pre-processing before you can then have that final data set. Anybody who does machine learning knows that 80% of the work is just cleaning up the data. And so that's usually the case here as well. So to get this nice package of data at the end that you can run any of these analyses on, actually, it takes a long time to get there. And it's not as exciting. And maybe also a little less unclear than like who does what. And so that's where I'm wondering if we have a previous step before we hit this step.
So I think you're saying that we should add more block in here that are before.
Yeah, well, like a Gantt chart, just some kind of expectation. We say, hey, look, right now what we have is literally just binary data, and to get it to so for example, so how do you get the spikes, right? It's like, okay, spike sorting, but there's quality control. How do you know they're good enough? Then how do you know they're visually responsive? And so all of these is a very unexciting work, but it's gonna be quite necessary for any of these steps. And so I'm wondering if we should organize for that as well. Again, with the SLAP2 data, it kind of organized spontaneously, but and then there's the unknown unknowns. So with the SLAP2 data, there was a surprise of like, oh wait, there's no encoding of which stimulus block is which. And we had to come up with an algorithm that automatically detects which stimulus block is shown. I'm sure there's going to be surprises like that in the new data as well. And so all of this takes time. And so I think the concern is that it can burn junior people out. That like if you're not used to that, then you feel like, oh look, this project is never going to come to an end. I better spend my effort and time elsewhere. And then all of the dynamics and the impulse can fizzle. That's my main concern.
Yes.
One idea that we might try somehow. I have the feeling because it's very high dimensional. You know, we have different projects. You have people that already contributed some bits and so on. So for me, at least, I think it would need to work visually, a bit like this. This image that Sarah created. And I was wondering if we could maybe have, let's say, a shareable, like Google presentation or something, Google Slides, where we would have these as kind of corners on a 2D plane, and then in the middle we can just put everything that has been contributed already. Like, for example, Alex that, kind of had a script that could load data and infer these stimulus blocks. And then we have some basic control comparisons and so on. And then maybe one can link though, like draw links between these blocks, kind of rebuild on Alex code, and someone else was using our code. And then one can kind of connect where we think these bits would in which project these would contribute, so that people have an overview of kind of what's the corners kind of scientifically that we want to get at, but this is also having an overview of what's already out there in terms of analysis and code that is related to one or the other project and could be used for further analysis.
It feels like we need to iterate this representation and had the pre-processing, the validation analysis that Alex mentioned, and then use those representation for people to just say, oh, I did that, this is the code. I did that, this is the code. And that could be on the Google Slides, but so that everybody has, it seems like we're missing two things. One is a representations of the pre-processing, and two is a place for people to share the code that they built to address those things easily. Is that right? Or
yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was wondering if, for example, we could add, similar to these boxes here in this graphic that essentially you put, I don't know, pre-processing pipeline to detect responsive units, and then boom, you put the code there, short description, and then you can link it to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are like, for instance, determine orientation tuning selectivity. There's an aspect of QC in there, but there might be a previous analysis 2.0 that is just how to extract the tuning response. And that means you have access to the sim table, and then you extract a metric to measure that. And so maybe that's maybe that's missing the point 0. That's right.
Yeah.
Like maybe we need to organize this in 0, 1, and 2, like complexity. Start pre-processing. 1 is first order analysis, tuning, and so on, and 2 is answering the question. And then people can say, oh, I see, I need to do 0, and that's going to help these things in the future.
Yeah.
I see.
I'm just wondering how much we have to really define these little steps, or if it's sufficient if we just put there what has been done already, because anyone working towards these, let's say, more end goals of these projects, no, I mean, you will see, okay, I will have to do this and this and this.
Sure.
I'm wondering how much we can do this in the beginning, or we would just add this dynamically, and then it's more about kind of long term, what are the directions that we're taking, and then on the other hand, what's there already that I can use. Because I don't know, for me personally, if I'm working on the project, I will have to do this plan for myself again anyways. And there, as Alex was saying, people have different approaches how to address this, just like starting with something, or really starting from the model, doing the predictions. And so maybe this is more flexible in the sense of this is the goals, and then we structure what's there already, and then one can see kind of what's code that's interesting to me that I want to build upon, and use that, and maybe we can build it from the center. Like in the center, we have this very basic pre-processing, loading the data, whatever, and then as it gets more specialized, it gets more to the outer and kind of towards the corner where one sees this is contributing to one of these projects. And yeah, these 4, I think it's 4 blocks, right, that Sarah has here.
This was this was the question that we're in the paper.
Yeah, and those could be like the 4 corners, and in the middle we gather, what's kind of existing code with in these kind of boxes. Maybe yeah, I can maybe like draft a slide just to and add kind of an example of, maybe for SLAP 2.
I think what would be helpful is to take the experience of SLAP 2 and see what were the steps that you and Alex and others went through, and we formalize it, because now we're going to have many more modalities. So it's going to have to be repeated across all of them.
Yeah.
Stefan?
I love the idea, the way you suggested, with 3 levels, like 0 pre-processing to make sure there is QC run, 1 some level of boring analysis, which can be just done to have a basic characterization, and 2 the things which answer the questions. And 0 is not included in here. 1 is the first box, and 2 would be the next 2 boxes. For 0, for the pre-processing, my suggestion would be to make sure that you don't include garbage in it. But at the same time, once you go beyond that, things which you said, for example, 2 standard deviations away in order to have tuning, those should be flags, not deletions or not elements, right? So the moment when one builds a database, for example, I'm interested in a box which follows up on this, I could put it, for example, as a box 3 or a level 3, which is going to build models for this, not necessarily to have analysis. And for that, I would include any neuron, tuned, untuned, whatever, anything which is going to make sure that it's not garbage, that it's not a multi-unit, or there isn't just some something weird, in there, everything should be included. Of course, somebody who does an analysis would want, so make sure that you organize the data in such a way that it's not necessarily that there are going to be flags for people who want to subselect for it, not necessarily a new database or a new data set for that. Different logical perspective, I would say that a few of the people talking more here are old and don't care so much about other things, but students and scientists, their authorships of projects, I think, would be one of the things which would be nice to know, some plans to do, because in the end, people would end up putting more or less. So what David was saying is that it depends on how much. There are people who are more comfortable to be able to put in more effort. Others would be as in, hey, I'll put in the effort proportional to what is going to be the final attribution. Right? You say that, oh, the final attribution would be proportional to the effort, but in the end, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem, because there can be a decision at the level of the individuals onto how they do that. So it's not easy, and I think that it would be one of the things beyond what needs to be done. I think that you should think as to what would be the final outcome. I think that unfortunately science has been organized that the currency is papers, right? That is not, and that's really the final currency. So you should have a plan to distribute it.
Yeah, I have some comments to that real quick. So first of all, I think that is changing. So I think that, first of all, the currency in science is money, like everywhere else. So it's about grant funding more than anything else. So it's true, if you're junior and you're on your career, then people have an eye on your publications as well. Increasingly, they look at your funding also. But there, it's not the papers or the first or last authorship so much more than your H-index or your citations. And so that is exactly why I think this is an attractive project for anyone to contribute as much as possible. In a time where the papers, and so most of us have already been part of this paper with 64 authors, and there's a good reason for that. That's already been almost 10 times cited. So that, for a lot of people, raises the H-index. And so, in faculty meetings, in dean decisions, one number can make the discussion much easier than in the old days, where you looked at, okay, but, is it this journal and first or last, or nobody looks at communicating author and so on. So I understand the concern, but I think that for a lot of people that might be doing this, there's a certain pioneering bravery here that times will change. And so to become part of papers with a lot of authors that then end up in glossy print journals might have more effect than having two Journal of Neurophysiology papers. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Now, my experience also has been, in order to turn all of this, what we're doing right here, into a paper, that takes a whole lot more effort, which is in the end to write that manuscript. And to really take the lead on writing this manuscript. And that alone is so much effort that a lot of people bow out. So while in the beginning, everybody's concerned who's going to be the first author, my experience has been, in the end, nobody wants to be the first author, because it's so difficult to get the paper written and make sure it's submittable. So I'm just cautioning. I understand the concern, and I think everybody shares it to some degree, but I think this could work out quite easily in practice because of everything I said.
I actually have some input, speaking as a PhD student of Dr. Karima Weiss. I think that I can understand how I think maybe a concern of a PhD student, for instance, such as myself, would be that we would do analysis, we would write code. Others will use that analysis, others will use that code, and then your contribution kind of gets lost in, let's say, the lineage of the code that keeps getting developed by more and more individuals. And then the original contributor maybe first proposed the idea, or first contributed to the analysis, or first generated code that started off what others did to contribute and develop off of that initial code. All that gets lost. So I think that perhaps we can make use of some of the tools available in GitHub. I know that in GitHub there is, I believe there is a tool to track the authorship of individual contributors. So maybe it's worthwhile looking into the kind of tools available in GitHub for tracking who contributed what to a coding project. Now, as to the writing part, I really can't speak much to that, but I think to the coding part, I think there are already a lot of tools available in GitHub for tracking credit and pushes and commits and things like that.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Can I speak to the credits aspect, Nicholas? Is in my mind, these projects will continue to unfold in a very public setting, and so anybody that is participating in the analysis will be part of the effort. And so, if you or someone else contribute a really important piece of code, when the publication is written, it will be really clear contribution table that say exactly what you did, and you will write that. You'll say, I did this piece, and I think it contributed that much to the paper. Now, the author order will have to be jointly agreed among all co-authors. That's how I see it, but at least you can just clarify what part you did. And if it is a small piece, it will be written. Does that address your point?
That makes sense. Yeah.
I feel like we should just have like a really clear table that say exactly what you did. I contributed this piece of code that was important to this analysis. If you make the major finding of the paper, it will be written. So you won't. Authorship order is a complex one-dimensional vector, but we should just be more transparent about what you did.
I do like the idea. What we started doing, we didn't use GitHub, we used Collab, and so maybe at some point we have to switch because the code base will get more complex. But what we did is at the top, if somebody used code from previous versions, you just listed that. So that list at the top got longer and longer who at some point contributed. And so if we're careful with that, then we should have exactly that effect, that we have a lineage of who contributed at what point. Now, the other thing that the review project has shown, and this is also something that I've experienced in larger projects, is sometimes people join at some point and then they completely drop out. And then it can be really difficult even to do what Jerome just said, that in the end, you don't even know, because they move from one position to another, the email addresses changes. It can be really difficult then to ensure, because you need to have all authors written consent to make sure that they're on board. So I think that is why I think would be important for everyone to, even if you're overwhelmed and you can't do analysis for a couple of months, to still join the meetings or still kind of follow the project along. But yeah, that my main concern is as well that having worked with a lot of students, to make clear that this is a multi-year project. So don't expect that by August there will be a paper. And so that everybody is clear on that. I think the review already showed that. That took the last 2 years and it's still not submitted. And so that's normal. And so, but that's my main concern when I'm thinking maybe having Gantt charts or something can help. And then the last thing is that I think that we could also think about if what we have right here are pretty big ideas or pretty big papers, whether we want to maybe reorganize that and say that if somebody finishes a project and also writes the manuscript and everything, that even though that's a smaller paper, that can go out and that can be your first author paper. So that's another discussion we might want to have in terms of least publishable units. And so that allows people to maybe have a quicker sprint and quicker speed towards publications.
Can I just clarify that I was not asking my question about authorship? I was just more like talking about like coordination between, people, and like literally asking like how many people are going to be trying to work on various analyses and stuff, because I just don't know how many people there's 65 authors on the paper, but I don't know how many people are actively interested in doing analyses and stuff. I mean, I've pretty much only seen Lucas talk in these meetings. And like I said, I've never actually talked to these meetings, so it's like, but I am interested in like helping and stuff, but and maybe I could just talk to Jerome. I'm in the same building as him, so. But
well, I mean, David, I can speak to the number of people. This process has been very open, and so people will come in and out depending on their availability and interest. And so I totally expect it's going to continue. And so there'll be time where there'll be a lot more people on board, and time where a few of us just keep pushing it. That's expected. It be by the nature of it. If we make the analysis plan really clear, with really clear action items, and I would expect the group to grow, because it's easier to join, it's easier to participate, and then in 4 months we'll have really rich data set available for everyone to look at with a clear analysis plan. So this project has a lot of potential to gather people around it. But yeah, we need to have that. That's why doing this carefully is important. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Joe, the last thing that comes to mind. So I'm a little bit peripherally also involved with the IBL, the International Brain Laboratory. And so there the issue seems to be there's so much data, and that there's a lot of actually support to get onboarded. But because of the pre-processing and everything, that it is very difficult to actually join in or make use of the data. So I'm wondering if we could do what you just said and do a better job. And so another idea might be there that if somebody feels strongly about one of these questions and really wants to take a hold of that project and wants to do the leadership, that we could have almost like breakout groups. If somebody's like, look, I'm really interested in whether it's multiplicative or additive or subtractive prediction errors. And so that person could basically take on some oversight in terms of coordinating people, what analysis they do at what point. And as I said, I'm also concerned that in the end, this all has to come together at a paper writing step, which that's a lot of work in itself. And then seeing it through revision is a lot of work, because feedback comes back. You have to do more analysis. You have to rewrite and so on. So it will take commitment of individuals at some point, more than just to contribute analysis at some point or the other.
So in terms of for me, the immediate publications that will be generated is a data release publication. So in my mind, so we will be finished with data collections in the late spring, and then I anticipate that when we're done, we're at the institute, we'll carefully review all of the data assets with some of you, and then they will be we will create DandySet DOI for each one of the modality. And in those NWB files, there will be the pre-processed data that will be checked. And I think ideally we create a data publication, those exist, that describe the content of those files and how the processing was done and the curation that was done on it. I think that would be the first step. You're all welcome to be co-authors of that piece. But I feel like that's the obvious first step to make this born into the world as a data assets. And then I see, as we said, all of those sub questions become their own group and publications following on that. That's how I see it. But I'm open to your ideas. Okay. So what's the next step? It feels like we want to do the Google Slides that you suggested, Lucas, like had the 0, 1, and 2 layer.
Yeah, we can. I can try something, and yeah, I would maybe use then this PDF as a basis, to organize the research, and then in the center, just put some dummies of code that contributed, like as an example for the SLAP 2 And then how we do that for every modality, I think this is still an open question. If we would have this, let's say, slide for every data set, or yeah, we should proceed with that. Because I mean, some publications might also go cross recording technique, right?
That's right.
Combine these data. But maybe for now it's sufficient if we have per recording, we have this, because at least for me, the biggest asset would be to have the existing code and pre-processing per data set kind of in a nice overview with all the links in one place.
I wonder if
yeah,
I wonder if creating this data asset publication might be the way to sort of give everyone that contributed here sufficient reward in the short term to get us to the finish line of generating the data asset, because I think it could be very, very impactful in cited paper, because if it's used by all of us papers and others, that will be an important piece. And then the next step is to build upon it. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. I was just wondering how much, because typically with these, I mean, it can be so and so, but sometimes you have, like, let's say, already some basic analysis that you put there to just illustrate what's in the data, what you can do with it. So I was wondering what kind of analysis we would want to have in those in such a data paper kind of yeah.
We did one of these, yeah.
For example, these basic analysis of, there are outboard responses or something, and we really see a significant deviance from a control. So these are analyses that we could put in there already.
That's right. Stefan?
I think what you discussed as level 0 and 1 should go with the data paper. Whatever are in 2 should go to individual thought-driven papers.
We wrote one of those data papers several years ago, and they are less work to put together than a full-fledged story. But the work is intended to clarify the quality of the data and make sure it's usable. So I think it aligns the intent with what we will need to do as a first step. And there can be 50 co-authors to it. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to get the ball rolling, right? So we already did quite a bit of work on SLAP 2 and started work on the neuropixels. So then the mesoscope is still what's hasn't been looked at all, right? And so and then also with the neuropixels, get some kind of overview. And so now it's all clear that even that's very basic. It's not pre-processing, but post pre-processing that still leads towards a publication.
Yeah.
And just to understand it, Jerome, would that be one paper for all these modalities, or how would you imagine it?
I mean, that's what I would suggest. I mean, that will make the paper really powerful, but
all 3 modalities, all paradigms, right? So the whole thing.
There'll be voltage and glutamate in there. So it's almost 4.
And the SLAP 2 data is also that's ready, that this could be published like that and made public and all of that. So even though it's a very new technique and all of this, that.
Yeah, I mean it's the same design. So I mean there will be, yeah, we'll need some creations for sure, but that will be the intent.
Yeah, maybe for that, then it would be nice to have some, let's say, standard analysis that we apply to all of the data. Like, for example, like these oddball analysis also that we had, just to showcase that we can find these in the different things and yeah, kind of make I think now we're really getting to a point where we have to specify kind of what would be the scope in terms of analysis. So yeah.
Okay.
Finding the visually responsive signal should be first for all modalities, right? And then maybe the orientation tuning might be a next one as a sanity check. And that might be enough actually for a data paper.
I think that I would agree. I mean, you have to make sure that it's usable and it's well formatted, but we already saw responses in SLAP and NeuroPixels, so but there's a lot more of it to be done. Okay. So Lucas, you're going to share a Google slide or something like that, and then we can iterate on it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Should we discuss that next week or? I feel like we should take the time to think this carefully because we are collecting data, but as I said, we're building a train so that people can put a wagon.
Yes, yeah, let's iterate next week. I will have my son around, but let's see how it works.
Make sure you loop in. We should make sure we loop in Sarah, who made this graphic. It seems like she couldn't join today. I know she continues to be very supportive and wants to contribute. So, okay. Well, thanks everyone for the discussion. I felt it was very productive today. Any questions, comments?
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.